Hey there, welcome to the Reinsurance Podcast, the place where we dive into all things reinsurance, the coolest part of insurance. We're your hosts, Jared and Ben, a couple of ex-practitioners who loved the industry so much we founded Supercede to tackle some of its biggest headaches. And we're here to share our insights and stories with expert guests as we uncover what's really going on in the industry.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Reinsurance Podcast. Delighted to be doing a follow-up episode to the extra special Reinsurance Committee, Under 35's Reinsurance Group episode that we've just done.
So many superlatives.
I know.
Superlatives in this.
Yeah, but very, very humbled to have with us the chair of the Under 35's Reinsurance Committee, James Fisher. So, James, welcome back following the group episode.
Yeah, I've not been here before.
We've changed sides of the table.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's slightly different with you. And we've got Jared back with us.
I got invited back. I didn't qualify for the first conversation. I've scraped beyond the threshold. But as you sort of talked about at the end of that episode, it's an inclusive group that until I'm even in my 70s, I can attend the
Absolutely.
Under 35s events. So super excited to chat with you here.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so let's dive into your story, because again, this always tells stories of its own. How did you end up in the reinsurance world? When did you first hear the word reinsurance? And what did the Under 35's Reinsurance Group do in this journey for you as well?
I think everybody's journey into reinsurance is probably quite similar in that you don't go to school wishing to be a reinsurance professional. My journey to the to the reinsurance industry sort of started from failing to get into any of the sort of mainstream grad schemes, to be perfectly honest with you.
I can relate to
that. I did biology at university, not something that, you go along your 3 years thinking, right, this, reinsurance is what I'm born to do after doing this degree. But, did the degree and had a lab-based final assessment, realised I probably didn't want to spend the rest of my career in a lab.
Yeah.
And so the natural step that you get told is, all right, we'll start applying for, the consultancy firm grad schemes, the banking grad schemes, all that sort of stuff. So did that, didn't get anywhere. And then, scouring the web, insurance, reinsurance was one of those financial sectors that's on the, outskirts of most people's, vision when they're looking for, sort of London-based city jobs. And so did a bit of research, ended up pulling a list of Lloyd's syndicates and just firing speculative emails, which I think I got some responses, but, didn't really lead anywhere. And like all, job applications, when you fire out enough, you get some bites. And so ended up starting with XL Catlin, now AXA XL, in 2017.
Nice.
As a trainee underwriting assistant for the North America and international property treaty teams. So that was my sort of, first, role in the industry. Yeah. Now currently at Gallagher Re on the broking side. So, fortunate enough to have worn both hats. Yeah. So.
And what exposure did you get to the under 35s within that XL Catlin kind of experience, or was that a bit later in your journey?
No. So that is where it started. Former colleague of mine, Stephanie Bunyan, was on the under 35s committee at the time, and I think this is probably similar for a lot of people. It's not strategic, but it's more natural that certainly all the big broking firms will have somebody who is on the committee, and the number of the sort of bigger underwriting companies tend to have somebody, on the committee. So Steph was on the committee, and, in those, so in 2017, Winter Party tickets were sold in person.
Yeah.
So we had printouts, and it was cash in hand, exchanging of tickets.
Someone's manning the desk.
People would sit in Lloyd's, by the barriers, with tickets to sell. Obviously now we're all digital. But, that was my first foray. I think, like many, because the Winter Party is so accessible, it's the cheapest event we run. It's the most attended. The last one we've just run, I think we had 650 people through the door.
Wow. Yeah.
So that is the most accessible event that we run. And that's where I had my first introduction to the under 35s. And from there, it kind of spiraled in a great way, meeting, new people, which is the aim really of the under 35s, building out a network, And eventually, when Steph stepped down, there was a space going. And the way that we have set up for having new committee members is that you typically have to have a sponsor who is on the committee, sort of person that can vouch for you. And Steph was that person. So that's how I joined in 2021.
Nice. Oh, very cool. And had you heard of reinsurance before you heard of the under 35s, or was that the gateway in? Or
Reinsurance before the under 35s,
Yeah.
but you probably hit on something that we talk about almost every committee meeting.
Interesting.
Once a month we have a committee meeting, 16 of us, and certainly outreach and what we can do to improve the bridge between people who don't know what they want to do and finding reinsurance.
Yeah.
We're obviously an unaffiliated group. We're a not-for-profit group. So attending things like careers fairs is probably a bit tricky for us. But it's certainly something the group is passionate about, trying to figure out ways that we can, improve dialogue between early careers and reinsurance. Because, the industry itself is almost this sort of perfect secret. Once you're in reinsurance, you realize how fantastic, an industry it is to work in. And hopefully the under 35s is, demonstrates how unique the industry is. But broadcasting that message is tough.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting sort of dynamic that our industry faces, as in the talent challenges we face sort of encapsulate this. But you have the under 35s then, which really represents like the way our industry thinks about things, in that it's not like one firm trying to go and get better talent. It's not, Aon or Gallagher or GC or Swiss Re trying to just go get the talent. It's a recognition that improving talent in this industry is something we all do together. But it also is reflective of sort of how the under 35s works. Like the committees being sort of set up with individuals from across firms. You running debates and these other events where you bring in industry leaders from across firms who then share their evenings on the stage to talk to a generation of talent in a friendly, but they're at competing brokerages or reinsurers or similar. But it's this real collaborative, cohesive sort of dynamic that our industry has, which it represents a really interesting way that we think about sort of the role that we sort of serve in the world and sort of how we improve our positioning there sort of writ large. When we talk about like the event specifically, how do you sort of see that collaboration kind of model playing out as you reach out to individuals to speak at events or to sponsor events or those types of things?
Yeah, I mean, in every event that we run that requires external parties or guests, it's open arms, which is amazing, really. As you've said, these are very busy people, particularly with the debate. So for those people who don't know, we run an annual debate, which is usually a sort of 3 to 4 person panel on a particular topic. Sort of 3 rounds of motion or question. There's an overarching theme, and then the group that is in attendance. So it's a sit-down meal. We usually have, I think it's about 140 in attendance.
Nice.
Essentially vote for the person that they agree with the most, or who they believe has articulated their, side of the motion the best. But we wouldn't be able to run that without, buy-in from C-suite individuals who, are constantly traveling and who are giving us their time. We have reached out to people in the past who have not been available, but have said, please let me know next time. I really want to do, I was there 10 years ago as a guest, and now I'd love to speak. So it's amazing, really.
When it goes into something you also mentioned on the group's conversation around the legacy role that this group plays, and the number of executives who'd been on tour or former committee members or those types of things, and their sort of commitment to seeing the under 35s sort of continue to grow and be sort of a central force of innovation and growth and development in the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, something I wanted to ask about, actually, because Do you think it's changing? Like we're in the fairly AI hyped environment, and we've always said in this episode and before, reinsurance, what a great career, what an incredible place to work. Do you think the industry is changing its outlook of what a career in reinsurance might look like, and is the under 35s thinking about that as well in terms of how do you bring in the appropriate kind of next generation of talent? How does that factor into your thinking as you look forward, I guess, as well?
I think reinsurance is always going to be a people industry. I'm sure, I know from podcasts that you guys have run in the past, I've been talking about AI as a tool for streamlining and making jobs easier, but not necessarily replacing jobs. That human in the loop, is always going to be required. And it's such a people-focused industry that I don't think that will go away, probably because of, and using the word legacy, because not to sort of hold on to and keep it antiquated and till we mustn't let go of printing out slips and all that sort of stuff, but more that it's so relationship driven and clients value relationships, and broker underwriter interactions are so important. I don't think that will ever go away. And I think the under 35s is probably the embodiment of a network accelerator. We always talk about it's such a, I guess, cringe phrase to use, but network being net worth, something like that. But
yeah, okay.
I mean, I can speak from personal experience. I was made redundant when I was 4 years ago, and not having a network around me, that would have been an insanely it was a tough time.
Yeah,
it would have been mind blowing at in your mid 20s to be made redundant. But actually, the network around me from brokers that I'd met through my role, from being a part of the under 35s, meant that there were so many shoulders to lean on, and to sort of work through that process. And I know I'm not the only person that's had that experience. And so I think really as a committee, I'm speaking on behalf of the 16, including myself, people who volunteer their time to ensure the continuation of the under 35s. It's a passion project, because we have all benefited from the events and being a part of the under 35s, and it's all benefited us in our careers.
It's a combination of you open up your network such that, because there's always this recognition that at a certain point you're not looking on job boards for roles. Like, you work through your networks to see what you want to do next. But attending events sort of opens your exposure to sort of leadership in the industry. But being on the committee is another level. Like, you begin to get direct email access and phone number access to like executives across the industry, because you're organizing an event for them to speak at, or you're having them help sponsor something, or having them sort of present delegates for a tour or similar. But it presents this relationship to that level of leadership where, if you're not getting involved and leaning into groups like the under 35s, those people sort of seem sort of too difficult to reach, impossible to network with. But it becomes a really powerful way to sort of build a relationship around a shared passion for this industry progressing forward and continuing to sort of cultivate talent. Is that something that you're seeing now as the chair, sort of getting more and more access to a worldwide network of leadership, who are well beyond their 30s or 35s, I guess? Is that sort of something you're seeing more and more of as you take this chair role?
I mean, probably not more and more, because I think it's the committee's responsibility to ensure that continues. We obviously have huge alumni. The chair role is an annual venture. So, we've been in existence for over 50 years. So there's over 50 ex-chairs out there, and hopefully, as a goal of ours, the continuation of the committee for the next 50 years. There's plenty more chairs to come, and alumni who have sat on the under 35s and who are all very passionate, who either end up being in senior positions, having been a part of the under 35s, or at least at one time or another attending an event. But I do think the responsibility lies with us to maintain the relationships between the group and senior executives. The debate's a fantastic one because every year we reach out to 4, senior executives or experts in their field to sort of speak. In the past, we've run, we have a mentor scheme, which has been sort of, it's been molded to be more of a sort of professional development scheme now. But in the past, we've run a mentorship scheme that's been more focused on senior leaders. So I think we shortlisted 5 to 10 who were paired with a volunteer senior leader and had a sort of a mentorship scheme that wasn't aimed at new entrants to the market. It was aimed at people who had sort of 7 to 10 years. I think, that's probably would be my opinion on it's our responsibility to maintain the relationship, because all those senior executives have their day jobs, as do we as volunteers on the committee. But they're not going to continue the under 35s. It's up to us to keep cultivating people who are interested in the group, to keep new members, to keep people wanting to be a part of the committee.
Yeah. I think, if you think about the listenership of this podcast, we it's sort of split. You have a huge listenership of young people early in their career, but also a lot of sort of senior leadership individuals. So it's an important point as well to remind them of the important role that they play supporting groups like this, such that it attracts people to listen to or attend events and these types of things, because it's a central point to how we continue to move forward, which I think is super exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, our calendar is I'd like to think vast enough, and there are enough events that span, interest within the market, that most senior executives or heads of teams in the last 12 months have heard Under 35's Reinsurance Group, by being asked if somebody can attend, or by seeing something on LinkedIn, if they're active on LinkedIn, or obviously something like this podcast. It's something that has been around for a long time, and hopefully will be around for years to come.
Absolutely, long live the under 35s. We are running up against time, so I have one question I wanted to ask you before we wrap up. Is that you mentioned the chair role being an annual venture. So I guess in your what do I want to do in my first 100 days manifesto, you only have 365 in total. What were your sort of mission? Goal type things that you said, when I'm chair, I'd really like to do X, Y, and Z, and how much longer have you got left before that year runs out?
Yeah, the AGM is typically towards the end of May, early June. So we're we've got about 6 months.
Nice.
6 months to go. It's an interesting question, because I think for us, every new chair sort of is a continuation of the chair prior. The last year's chair, Jamie Warwick, he's now deputy chair. That's the sort of structure.
Makes sense.
Once you're a chair, you then step down to deputy chair, and then perhaps you throw in the towel, or you can stay on the committee in sort of like a consultant role. But I with Jamie as chair, he really focused on future-proofing, future-proofing the group, making sure that we had, things in place that meant if 10 people dropped off the committee, that it would continue. There were rules in place. We have to have a treasurer because we're, exchanging funds, and rules of thumb in place for planning events. And so when he approached me, do you think you'd want to be chair next year? The obvious answer for me was yes. And the manifesto for myself was continuing the great work that Jamie had done. I think it's a nice position to be in, as an incoming chair, when you can look back through the years, and we were talking about previous chairs, over the last 5 years, you can look at everything that those people have done and think that was amazing. I want to continue that. That was amazing. Or maybe that's fallen off. We want to, bring that back. So, definitely continuing with the future-proofing of the group, making sure that, we are setting things up to have longevity, but also focusing on charity. Yeah, I think that the group itself being volunteer-led and non-for-profit, we do have an annual charity that is selected at the AGM, and I think we're in an incredibly powerful position to, impact a lot of good with the events that we run. What the current state of play is that when you buy a ticket for an event, it will have a donation to charity built into the price. We don't currently run an external charity event that is solely focused on raising money for charity. We do an internal one. So one day a year, the committee attend a charity day. So we've done things like volunteering at soup kitchens, for example.
Oh, nice.
But I think something that I know the charity subcommittee, Mel and Nick, are massively keen on is running a tailored charity day. Companies across the industry offer a day to do some form of charity work. So we know we'd have buy-in, and we've got a massive platform, so 1,000-strong membership. It would be amazing if we could utilize the platform to achieve something like in our 50th anniversary year when we had our 50th ball. We raised tens of thousands of pounds. Because we had an auction for such an easy way to build money. But I think definitely something along the lines of focusing on charity.
Very, very cool. That's a super impactful way for us to wrap up the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, James. Thanks for tuning in to the Reinsurance Podcast. If you enjoyed our show, don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a review to let us know how we're doing, preferably 5 stars. For more insights and updates, follow us on LinkedIn and visit our website at supercede.com/podcasts. You'll find the links in the show notes.